Dr. Kim Hannah rubbed her tired eyes and took another sip of cold coffee. She had been staring at the same data streams for 3 straight days now, watching numbers and symbols cascade down her multiple screens like digital rain. The Deep Space Monitoring Station was quiet at this hour, with only the sough from computers and the distant whisper of air recyclers breaking the silence. Something was different about this signal. It wasn't the usual cosmic background radiation or pulsar emissions that her equipment normally picked up. This was deliberate, structured, purposeful. The mathematical patterns repeated every 47 minutes with precision that made her skin crawl. "Director Park," she called across the darkened laboratory, her voice cutting through the electronic whispers. "You really need to see this." Director Park Jinwoo looked up from his own workstation, where he had been reviewing the monthly reports. His weathered face showed the strain of 30 years spent listening to the cosmos, hoping for something more than stellar noise. He set down his tablet and walked over to Hannah's station, his footsteps echoing in the empty facility. "What do you have?" he asked, settling into the chair beside her. The screens reflected in his tired eyes as he studied the cascading data. "It started 72 hours ago," Hannah explained, pointing to the timestamp in the corner of her display. "The signal is coming from the Kepler 442 system, nearly 1,200 light-years away. Look at these patterns." She highlighted sections of the transmission, showing how certain sequences repeated while others changed in what appeared to be meaningful ways. The signal was strong, much stronger than it should be at such a distance, suggesting the source was broadcasting with incredible power. "It's definitely artificial," she continued, her fingers moving across the holographic interface with practiced ease. "But the encryption method is completely unknown. It doesn't match any of our communication protocols or theoretical alien contact scenarios. This is something entirely new." Park leaned closer, his brow furrowing as he watched the alien mathematics flow across the screen. After decades of searching for extraterrestrial intelligence, the reality of actually finding it felt surreal. "Have you run it through the translation protocols?" "That's the thing," Hannah said, pulling up another window. "The computer has been working on it for hours now, and it's finally starting to make some progress. The results are disturbing." She activated the translation algorithm's output, and fragmented words began appearing on the screen. The computer was only catching pieces, but those pieces painted a terrifying picture. Words like help, dying, and please appeared repeatedly throughout the transmission, mixed with what appeared to be coordinate systems and stellar cartography. "My God!" Park whispered as he watched more translations appear. "They're asking for help." The signal wasn't just a message. It was a desperate cry for assistance. As the computer worked through more of the transmission, star charts began materializing on the screen. These weren't Earth's constellations, but distant systems marked with symbols that the translation program interpreted as warnings or distress markers. "Look at this section," Hannah said, highlighting a particularly complex part of the signal. "The computer thinks these are population counts, and they're decreasing with each update. Someone is systematically destroying entire worlds." The implications hit them both at the same time. This wasn't first contact with a peaceful alien civilization, exchanging greetings across the cosmos. This was a distress call from a dying species, broadcast with the last of their strength in hopes that someone, somewhere, might be able to help them. Who are they running from? Park asked, though he dreaded the answer. More translation fragments appeared on the screen. References to something called the Vorthak hegemony began showing up repeatedly, always associated with destruction and death. The computer was having trouble with the alien concepts, but the basic message was becoming clear. An aggressive empire was consuming world after world, and these Zephyrians were the last to stand against them. "We need to alert the Defense Council immediately," Park said, reaching for a secure communication device. "If this is real, if there really is an interstellar war happening out there—" "Wait," Hannah interrupted, pointing to a new section of the translation. "There's more. They're not just calling for anyone to help them. They're specifically looking for something called Deathworlders. The computer is having trouble with the concept, but it seems to be a type of species they've heard legends about." The term sent chills down both their spines. Whatever these Zephyrians meant by Deathworlders, They believed such beings were their only hope against the Vorthack hegemony. The desperation in their message suggested they were willing to contact even the most dangerous species in the galaxy if it meant survival. As dawn broke over the monitoring station, Hannah and Park continued working to decode the alien transmission. Neither of them realized that Earth itself might be exactly what the dying Zephyrians were looking for, or that humanity's response to their plea would change the balance of power across the entire galaxy forever. The signal continued its endless repetition, carrying its message of hope and desperation across the vast emptiness between the stars. Admiral Lee Miho walked into the emergency meeting room with heavy steps. The translated alien message was still fresh in his mind, and he knew the words he was about to speak would change everything humanity thought they knew about their place in the universe. The United Defense Council had gathered within hours of receiving the decoded transmission. Presidents, generals, scientists, and diplomats filled the circular chamber, their faces tense with anticipation. Above the polished conference table, a holographic display showed the alien text in both its original symbols and the English translation. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Lee began, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he was about to reveal. "What we learned from this message goes far beyond a simple cry for help. We have discovered something about Earth and humanity that changes everything." President Choi Salmon sat at the head of the table, her usually calm demeanor showing cracks of concern. She had seen many crisis briefings in her years of leadership, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. "Admiral, please explain what our analysis teams have discovered." Lee gestured to the holographic display, which shifted to show a complex chart filled with alien symbols and measurements. "According to this transmission, our planet has been classified by galactic civilization as a class 12 Death World. This appears to be their highest danger rating for inhabited planets." A murmur of confusion rippled through the assembled leaders. General Han Kyung, a veteran of Earth's various conflicts, leaned forward in his chair. "What exactly makes Earth so dangerous in their view?" "Everything," Dr. Yoon Jisoo answered from her position near the scientific advisory panel. She was Earth's leading expert in theoretical xenobiology, though until now her work had been purely academic. "Our gravity is nearly 3 times stronger than what most galactic species consider normal. Our atmospheric pressure would crush beings from low-density worlds. The magnetic field fluctuations that we barely notice would cause severe disorientation in species with magnetic-sensitive navigation organs." The display changed again, showing Earth's ecosystem in a new light. Predators that humans had learned to coexist with appeared as nightmarish monsters when viewed from an alien perspective. Tigers, sharks, bears, and even smaller creatures like spiders and snakes were highlighted with warning symbols. The predator density on Earth is apparently unheard of in civilized galactic space, Dr. Yoon continued. Most peaceful species evolved on worlds where the largest predators were equivalent to our rabbits. They cannot comprehend a planet where massive carnivores actively hunt intelligent prey. President Choi felt a chill run down her spine. "And they believe this environment created us to be Deathworlders," Admiral Lee confirmed, the alien term rolling strangely off his tongue. "According to the transmission, we are mythical beings spoken of in whispered legends across peaceful civilizations. Species forged by impossible survival conditions, turned into ultimate warriors by planets that try to kill them every day." The silence in the room was deafening. Secretary of Defense Kim Tae-hyun was the first to speak. "Are we really that different from them?" Dr. Yoon pulled up comparative data that their computers had extrapolated from the alien message. "Consider this. The average human child learns to recognize and avoid dozens of potentially lethal creatures before the age of 10. We teach our children about poisonous plants, dangerous weather, and natural disasters as basic life skills. Most galactic species have never encountered a predator larger than themselves in their entire evolutionary history." General Han shifted uncomfortably in his seat as the implications became clear. "Our military training, our weapons, our tactics, they're all based on fighting other humans who evolved on the same hostile world we did, compared to herbivorous species that developed on garden worlds with gentle weather and no predators. We would seem like unstoppable killing machines," Admiral Lee finished. "The transmission suggests that most galactic civilizations actively avoid any contact with Death World inhabitants. They believe we are too dangerous to communicate with. The weight of this revelation settled over the room like a heavy blanket. For centuries, humanity had searched the stars for signs of intelligent life, wondering why the universe seemed so empty and quiet. Now they understood the terrible truth. The galaxy wasn't empty at all. It was full of civilizations that had been deliberately hiding from Earth. President Choi stood slowly, her mind racing through the implications. So when these Ephirians sent out their distress call asking for Deathworlders to help them, they were asking for us, admirably confirmed. They're so desperate that they're willing to contact beings they consider to be legendary monsters. The fact that they even know the term Deathworlders suggests there are others like us out there, but we might be the closest ones to their location. Dr. Yoon looked at her fellow scientists with a mixture of excitement and terror. We're not just making first contact with an alien species. We're being asked to become the galaxy's protectors, possibly its most feared warriors. The room fell quiet again as each person contemplated what this meant for humanity's future among the stars. The Luna shipyards had become a hive of desperate activity, unlike anything in human history. Captain Nam Hyojin stood on the bridge of the U.S. Vengeance, watching through the viewport as welding sparks flew like angry stars around her ship's hull. Workers in spacesuits crawled over every surface, installing weapons that had never been designed for space combat. Careful with those railgun mounts, she called into her headset, watching a crew struggle with a massive kinetic cannon. The Vengeance had been a peaceful colony transport just 3 weeks ago, designed to carry families and supplies to distant worlds. Now it bristled with enough firepower to level a city. Her ship was not alone in this transformation. Throughout the orbital facility, dozens of vessels underwent similar changes. Mining ships had their processors replaced with missile launchers. Cargo haulers now carried fighter squadrons instead of trade goods. Even luxury cruise liners had been stripped down and armored, their elegant dining halls converted into tactical command centers. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Kong Mincio called from the tactical station, his young face tight with concentration. "Admiral Cho's flagship is requesting final confirmation of fleet readiness." Hyojin nodded and opened a communication channel to the massive dreadnought Retribution, floating like a steel mountain in the center of the formation. Admiral Cho Sung-jae had personally overseen the creation of Earth's first interstellar war fleet, pushing the shipyard workers to complete impossible tasks in record time. "Admiral, this is Captain Nam aboard the Vengeance," she reported, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were about to attempt. "All ships in Battle Group 7 report weapon systems online and crews at full readiness." The fleet that surrounded her would have seemed laughable to any established galactic power. 43 ships of mixed classes in questionable combat readiness, crewed by humans who had never fought a battle beyond their own solar system. But these vessels carried something no peaceful civilization possessed. Weapons and tactics born from a world that had tried to kill humanity since the dawn of time. Far below on Luna's surface, the Marine barracks buzzed with final preparations. Colonel Jung Dae-hoon stood before 3,000 of Earth's finest soldiers, men and women who had volunteered to become humanity's first interstellar warriors. Their equipment was a mixture of cutting-edge technology and brutal practicality that would have horrified more civilized species. "Listen up, Marines," Colonel Jung began, his voice carrying across the assembled ranks. "In a few hours, we're going to jump into a star system where an entire species is facing extinction. These Vorthack invaders think they're the galaxy's apex predators. They've been conquering peaceful worlds for centuries, meeting no real resistance." He paused, looking into the faces of soldiers who had trained for urban warfare, jungle combat, desert operations, and Arctic survival. Each one was a product of Earth's hostile environment, shaped by a planet that demanded constant vigilance and ruthless efficiency. "They have no idea what's coming for them," he continued. "These aliens have never faced an enemy that evolved on a death world. They've never fought against beings who grew up learning that everything in their environment wants to kill them. We're about to show them what real predators look like." Meanwhile, in the intelligence centers scattered throughout the fleet, communication specialists worked around the clock to intercept and decode Vorthack transmissions. The enemy's own words painted a picture of growing panic that surprised even the humans. Lieutenant Park Sora stared at her translation screens in amazement as more decoded messages appeared. The Vortex communications networks were buzzing with references to ancient legends and half-forgotten myths. Terms like the Silent Death Stirring and Deathworlder Awakening appeared repeatedly in their tactical reports. "They're actually afraid of us," she whispered to her colleague. "They know we're coming, and they're terrified." The intercepted messages revealed that the Vortex had encountered Deathworlders before, somewhere in their distant past. Those encounters had apparently been traumatic enough to become part of their cultural mythology. The very mention of humanity's awakening was causing panic throughout their invasion fleets. Admiral Cho reviewed the final battle plans from his command center aboard the Retribution. The human fleet might be small compared to the massive Vortex armadas, but it carried weapons that no peaceful civilization had ever conceived. Rail guns that could punch through planetary shields, nuclear warheads that could crack moons, and boarding tactics designed for fighting other humans in Earth's most dangerous environments. "Signal all ships," he commanded. "Begin final hyperspace preparations. We jump in 30 minutes. As the countdown began, Captain Nam took one last look at Earth through her viewport. The blue marble that had seemed so small when she was growing up now looked like the fortress world it truly was. Humanity was finally leaving their death world, not as explorers or diplomats, but as the galaxy's most feared warriors answering a desperate call for help. The stars were about to learn why peaceful civilizations whispered about Deathworlders in their darkest nightmares. Fleet Commander Vortex stood on the command bridge of his massive bioship, watching with satisfaction as the siege fleet moved into final position around the dying world below. The planet Kepler's Rest was the last stronghold of the Zephyrian species, and after months of bombardment, its shields were finally failing. The Zephyrians had been surprisingly stubborn prey, but like all peaceful species, they lacked the killer instinct needed for true warfare. Their weapons were designed for defense. Their tactics focused on protection rather than destruction. It was almost disappointing how easily they had fallen to the Vortex hegemony's advance. "Begin the final consumption protocol," Vortex commanded, his multiple eyes gleaming with anticipation. The bioships around him pulsed with organic machinery, preparing to drain the planet's resources and add its biomass to the ever-growing hegemony fleet. That was when his sensor operator began making sounds of confusion and alarm. "Fleet Commander, we have new hyperspace signatures appearing at the system's edge. Multiple contacts, unknown configuration." Vortex turned his attention to the tactical display, expecting to see another group of fleeing refugees, or perhaps a small rescue fleet from some other peaceful species. What appeared on his screens made his blood run cold with ancient fear. The ships that emerged from hyperspace moved wrong. Where Vortex vessels flowed like living creatures and peaceful species ships maintained careful, predictable patterns, these newcomers cut through space with predatory precision that spoke of hunters born, not made. "Impossible," he whispered, recognizing the movement pattern from half-forgotten legends his ancestors had whispered in dark spaces. The silent death awakens. The human fleet wasted no time on communications or warnings. They simply opened fire with weapons that defied Vortex's understanding of civilized warfare. Kinetic projectiles moving at near-light speed slammed into Vortex bioships, punching through their living armor like bullets through flesh. The impact were so violent they turned entire sections of his fleet into expanding clouds of organic debris. Captain on Jehun commanded the frigate Shadow Strike as it moved through the chaos of battle like a ghost. His ship used stealth technology that the Vortex sensors couldn't even detect, making it invisible until the moment it struck. The bioship's organic sensors were designed to track living enemies, not the cold metal death that humanity brought to war. "Target their command vessel," he ordered his weapons officer, his voice calm despite the magnitude of destruction surrounding them. "Let's cut off the head and watch the body die." The Shadow Strike slipped through the Vortex formation like a knife between ribs, its crew working with the quiet efficiency of professional killers. When they reached optimal firing position, they unleashed a barrage of guided missiles that tore through command ship's living hull and detonated deep inside its vital organs. On the surface of Kepler's Rest, the surviving Zephyrian civilians had gathered in their underground shelters, preparing for the final moments of their species' existence. They had sent their desperate message across the galaxy, hoping against hope that the legendary Deathworlders might actually exist and come to their aid. When the sounds of battle began echoing through the planet's atmosphere, they cautiously emerged to witness something that would be spoken of in whispered legends for generations to come. The creatures they had summoned fought with a cold, calculated brutality that made even the Vorthak warriors look like frightened children. The human ships moved through the Vorthak fleet like sharks through a school of fish, striking with precision and retreating before the enemy could respond. Their weapons were designed not just to destroy, but to maximize terror and confusion. Electronic warfare suites jammed Vorthak communications, leaving the bioships isolated and unable to coordinate their defense. Colonel Osulji led the boarding parties that began systematically clearing the damaged Vorthak vessels. Her Marines moved through the alien corridors with the practiced efficiency of soldiers who had trained for combat in Earth's most dangerous environments. Where the Vorthak expected civilized warfare with rules and mercy, they found apex predators using tactics evolved from millennia of survival on a world that tried to kill them daily. The Marines cleared each ship room by room, using explosives, chemical weapons, and brutal close combat techniques that left the Vorthak defenders in complete terror. These were not the gentle resistance fighters they had grown accustomed to conquering. These were beings who had learned warfare from a planet where everything was trying to eat them. Within 6 hours of the human fleet's arrival, the mighty Vorthak siege force that had taken months to assemble was reduced to burning wreckage floating in space. Those bioships that still had functioning engines fled in panic, their crews broadcasting warnings across every communication channel they could access. The angels of death have awakened. Their terrified messages proclaimed, "The death world has unleashed its children. Run, hide. The silent death comes for us all." Fleet Commander Vorthek was among the few who escaped that day, but the image of human warfare would haunt his nightmares for the rest of his life. The peaceful galaxy would never be the same again. Ambassador Lim Nari stepped into the rebuilt Zephyrian Council chambers, her footsteps echoing in the vast crystalline hall. The architecture was beautiful but fragile, made from materials that would shatter under Earth's gravity. Everything about this place spoke of a species that had evolved in peace, never knowing the harsh realities that shaped humanity. The Zephyrian Council members stood as she entered, their tall, slender forms swaying like grass in a gentle breeze. Their large eyes reflected both gratitude and something deeper, a fear that would probably never fully disappear. These beings had summoned what they believed were mythical monsters to save them, and now they had to live with the consequences. "Honored Ambassador," spoke Council Leader Velnara, her voice like wind chimes in a soft breeze. "We gather today to formally express our people's eternal gratitude to humanity for delivering us from extinction." Nari nodded respectfully, understanding the weight of this moment. She represented not just her own species, but the dawn of a new age in galactic politics. For the first time in their recorded history, the peaceful civilizations of the galaxy had protectors who could match any aggressor's violence. "The people of Earth are honored to have helped," she replied, her words carefully chosen to balance strength with reassurance. "But our assistance was not a single act of charity. Today, I am here to propose something that will benefit us all." She activated a holographic display that showed star maps spanning dozens of systems. Red zones marked areas where aggressive species had been expanding, while blue zones showed peaceful civilizations that had been living in constant fear. "The Terran Defense Compact offers protection to all peaceful civilizations," she announced, watching as the council members exchanged glances filled with hope and uncertainty. "In exchange for technological cooperation and trade agreements, humanity pledges to defend against any aggressive expansionist powers that threaten your worlds." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. For centuries, these species had lived as prey animals in a galaxy where might made right. The concept of having protectors was as alien to them as their peaceful nature was to humanity. Meanwhile, light years away on Admiral Cho's flagship, tactical reports streamed in from across the galaxy. The Admiral studied each message with the satisfaction of a general watching a perfectly executed campaign. The battle at Kepler's Rest had done more than save one species. It had fundamentally changed the balance of power throughout known space. "Sir," reported his intelligence officer, "we're receiving confirmation that the Vorthak hegemony is collapsing faster than our most optimistic projections. 17 subject worlds have declared independence in the past week alone. Cho smiled grimly as he watched the tactical display update in real time. Red zones that had represented Vorthack-controlled territory were turning green as liberated worlds threw off their oppressors. The news of humanity's intervention had spread through peaceful species communication networks like wildfire, carrying with it proof that even the most feared conquerors could be defeated. The rebellions are spreading beyond former Vorthack territory. Officer continued. Other aggressive species are facing uprisings from their conquered populations. Word is spreading that the Deathworlders have awakened and are offering protection to those who cannot protect themselves. On the surface of Kepler's Rest, Director Park Jin-woo walked through the reconstructed capital city that bore little resemblance to the bombed ruins the humans had found. Zephyrian architects had rebuilt their world with stunning beauty, but now their delicate spires were protected by human defense platforms orbiting overhead. What caught his attention wasn't the impressive reconstruction, but something much simpler and more meaningful. In a small park near the city center, human children were playing with young Zephyrians. The alien children were fragile creatures who would have been considered sickly by Earth standards, but they laughed and ran alongside the human kids with pure joy. "Strange sight, isn't it?" said Colonel Osulji, joining him as they watched the children play. The Marine officer had traded her combat armor for civilian clothes, but her watchful eyes never stopped scanning for potential threats. "Not strange," Park replied thoughtfully. "This is exactly what we should have expected. The galaxy feared our capacity for violence, but they missed the most important part of human nature." He gestured toward the playing children, where a human boy was carefully helping a young Zephyrian climb a tree designed for her species' lighter frame. The human child instinctively adjusted his strength and movements to avoid accidentally hurting his fragile friend. "What makes us truly formidable isn't our weapons or our tactics," Park continued. "It's our willingness to fight for those who can't fight for themselves. Every human child learns to protect those weaker than them. It's built into who we are." Colonel O nodded, understanding the deeper truth he was expressing. Humanity hadn't come to the galaxy as conquerors, seeking new worlds to dominate. They had arrived as reluctant warriors, ready to stand between the innocent and those who would harm them. News of the Terran Defense Compact spread quickly through diplomatic channels, and applications for protection began arriving faster than human administrators could process them. The age of Deathworlder protection had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. For the first time in galactic history, the meek had inherited not just their own worlds, but the promise of peace under the watchful protection of Earth's children.